Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third day of the Lunch and Learn series here in the Content Creation Lab. Again, I am Janice, your content and online course creation strategist, and we're going to be here today talking about our third subject, right? It is a five-part series, and we started it on Monday. The beauty of this particular series is that you do not have to be in the room in order to partake. There are replays available here in the Clubhouse app as well as on YouTube. I will post links to both the audio replay as well as to the workbook, which I'm going to pin a link for the workbook here in just a moment. But before I do that, I want to just give you a quick recap, right, of some of the things that we've talked about in the two previous Lunch and Learn sessions. So on Monday, we began our conversation really focused on our actual market, right? Those individuals in whom we are looking to connect with, potentially become our clients, right? But most importantly, offer some kind of value in their, in their life, either in their business or inside of their, improvements in their personal life. And so that is going to be our primary focus whenever we start thinking about the content that we're creating. Like, what is the purpose? And the purpose is going to be to connect with our potential audience. So that's what we talked about on Monday. On Tuesday, which was yesterday, we really talked about creating content buckets. And this is really when we went into the whole theory of planning. And the planning, of course, is super important because it allows for you to be able to create content in a much easier, seamless, and congruent way so that the content kind of fits and flows with your particular topic and, of course, your high level objective. So today we're going to talk about actually creating engaging visual content, right? What are some of the things that we can do to enhance the content that we create? So, like I mentioned, we're going to always start with the number one thing, which is knowing your audience. Before we can create any kind of visual content, it's going to be essential for us to know exactly who is going to be consuming it. So we want to understand the individuals in our target audience, their interests. We want to understand their learning styles, right? And then, of course, how can we create that visual images and content that's going to resonate with them? So think about what type of visuals that may or most likely is going to create some type of engagement with your message, right? And that is going to be important because we already kind of established our content, we planned it. So we want our visuals or the content in the visual sense to connect or convey that message, right? Um, some of the other things, right, in terms of choosing the right visual medium. There are going to be several different tools and softwares that you can use to create engaging type visual content. When we're thinking about our social media platforms, really it's going to come in a couple of methods, right? It's either going to be a stagnant or stationary type image, or it's going to be some kind of video. You could also have a combination of infograph, right, which are images of data and those types of things. But it still is going to be either in a video or a slide type format. So you want to make certain that you're choosing the right type of medium for your content, right? If you're having to, convey content that is complex, you want to make certain that you simplify it so that your audience can, of course, consume it in a way that it's going to be easy for them. Also, when we're thinking about, visual mediums, that is going to be one of the more important tools that we have as creators to convey or engage with our particular customer. Now, I'm going to talk about some tips, right, that is going to help us really keep in mind the actual medium that is going to be most suitable for the message that we're trying to convey, right? So, we're going to consider the type of content, right? Different types of content is going to, of course, require different types of mediums. If you're trying to explain again a very complex process or system, then a flow chart may be ideal, right? Or some type of diagram may be your best choice. If you're trying to highlight maybe some statistics or data, an infographic might be more effective. If you're trying to tell a story, then a video might be your best option. So we want to make certain that we're thinking about the complexity of the information, right? And when we're thinking about complexity, we want to make certain that we try to explain the topic in such a way that anyone who is in your target audience will understand your intent, right? um Videos, animations, those are going to be some of the most effective ways to convey the information. And then, of course, if you're dealing with really simple type concepts or data, then a simple graph or chart might be sufficient. So again, if you're looking at more complex data or scientific content, if that is your lane, then video animation, because it of course removes some of that intimidation and fear from the actual information or category itself, and allows for individuals to be able to receive the information that you're presenting to them. And then we want to also keep in mind our audience preference, right? And our audience preference really is going to be important, because if you're targeting a younger audience, right? They might be more receptive to video or interactive graphs versus if you're targeting to maybe an older, audience, where they're probably going to be more inclined to receive the slide decks or infograph, right? That may be more appropriate for them. So we want to make certain that we are keeping in mind exactly what generation we are dealing with in terms of our target audience. And that's why it's going to be super important to make certain that you keep in mind the demographics for your target audience. And if you're wondering, how can I really capture all of that information? Inside of day one, we talked about building an avatar. And inside the workbook is a really great exercise, if you will, or process for building your ideal avatar for your target audience. And will help you also create the appropriate visual content for that particular audience or segment of your audience. We also do not want to be afraid to mix it up, right? We want to mix and match up, maybe our different mediums that we're using. You may find that it is the combination of several different mediums that is going to be most effective for reaching your intended audience, right? So, for example, if you look at the video that I'm creating right now, that's going to be on YouTube, you'll notice that I'm using a stagnant image, and behind the image is my voice, right? Now, if I were to post this, then maybe I would use an image or a slide deck or a video, and then of course allow for those individuals to funnel through into the YouTube channel and listen there. So we want to make certain that we are not afraid to use a combination or mix of the different mediums that we have available to reach our audience. So let's talk about some of the software and applications that we can use to create visual content. um, Again, all of my rooms that I'm having this week is only going to be for 15 to 30 minutes. That is going to be the max. So you are really, if you really want more information or more details, you can either one, reach out to me to, book an actual discovery call, or you can download the ebook, right? The workbook that is fillable, so you do not have to print it. And you can use that to kind of help create or spark other content creation ideals. So, some of the softwares and applications that you can use to create that visual content, right? So, Adobe Creative Cloud, right? This is going to be a software application. It includes Photoshop, it includes illustrators, InDesign, right? It has a lot of variations for visual content from graphics to videos, okay? The other one, which is very popular, and if you go to TikTok, you can find several individuals who create amazing variations of content using this app or using this particular website, and that's going to be Canva. Now, Canva is, of course, it's web based. It is very affordable because you can use it for free. It does have areas that will require you to pay for the images, but if you don't want to use those paid images, you can still use the website with those free images, right? And you can also just pay per image, so you don't have to have a monthly subscription. But inside of Canva is a variation of different tools to use to create graphics, presentation, visual content. And there's also an option to schedule those exact same pieces of content on your various social media platforms. Okay. The other one that I'm going to talk about is Pick to Chart. Right, Pick to Chart is a web-based platform, and it specializes in creating infographics. Okay, so if you're trying to, communicate some, more technical or statistical or data type information, then Pick to Chart is going to be your preferred option. We also have Powtown, right? Now, Powtown is also web based and it's going to be used for animated videos, presentations. It has a variation of templates, characters, and of course, animation that's going to, engage your audience, right? And the really cute thing about animation, I was just talking to someone on Instagram because I seen that she's using a lot of really cute animation. And I always like to reach out to individuals who I think their content is like really engaging. And so I reached out to her and just said, hey, look, I really am enjoying your animated, content. And and so that could be the case. You want to make certain that you're using potentially a variation, but those things that are going to be beneficial to you and your particular brand. Okay. So again, that is going to be a really good tool to use for creating content around the animated type uh, content area, if you will. So let's talk about how can we design for clarity, right? So when creating any kind of visual content, clarity is going to be a very high priority, right? We want to avoid the clutter design, and that can happen, right? I know you've seen like some of these club photos where they have like 20, 30 different things happening in the image, and your eyes are just kind of like popping around because it doesn't really have anywhere to land. We want to make certain that our design is clear. We want to make certain that the font is legible. We want to make certain that the color scheme is consistent, right? We want to make certain that there's ample white space for your audience to focus on the most critical information. Because if they cannot, then they're going to get fatigued in trying to figure out what it is that you're expressing to them. Now, when it comes to creating visual content and in particularly clarity, right? We want to make certain that we ourselves understand, what it is that we're trying to express to our intended audience, right? And we want to make certain that once we understand it, that we don't make it too difficult, right? We want the audience to be able to have an easy time determining what it is you're trying to say, right? So again, some of the key tips. We want to use legible font, right? So we want to choose font that's going to be easy to read, even from a distance, right? We want to avoid using overly fancy or that elaborate kind of font that can be difficult to read, especially when you put it in like really small sizes. So we want to stick to our normal type fonts, right? We also want to stick to a consistent color scheme. So if you will look at my information for this week, every single day we pretty much are going to use the exact same template. When you go out to YouTube to just kind of browse it. And that template is going to be very, very clean, and it's going to basically draw your eyes to what I want you to see, which is the information that we're going to be discussing for that day. So we want to make certain that we keep a lot of ample white space, right? We don't want to overcrowd. Want to make certain that the design is balanced, right? We don't want it to, be overly, populated in one area and then the other area is just completely blank or clear, right? We also want to make certain that we have a visual hierarchy. So this is basically how we're going to arrange the design elements, right? We want to make certain that the viewer's eye is going to catch the most important information. So that may mean using larger font, it may mean using bold text, it may mean using contrasting colors, right? All of this is going to be super important. And it also helps when we start talking about any kind of accessibility. This is really like 101 instructional design information that we're kind of talking about right now. So we want to make certain that we're keeping all of this in mind. Again, all this information is inside the workbook. So if you're not able to write it down, because I know we are, speeding through a lot of this, then definitely grab the workbook and download it and get the information there. Okay. We want to make certain that we keep it simple. Keep it simple. There is such thing as overdoing it, especially in content design that is focused on being visually appealing. So we want to make certain that we don't have any kind of unnecessary detail. We want to make certain that anything that is distracting in terms of colors or shape or position, that we kind of fix, right? And then, of course, we want to make certain that everything is in a way that is most efficient and simple, right, in terms of communicating information that you want your potential audience to receive. We want to use descriptive labels, right? So if we have any charts or diagrams, don't expect your audience to try to figure it out. Like, go ahead and label it, let them know exactly what that information is in reference to. Simplify the complex information. Keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. I want to make certain that we're using high quality images. So if you're using any of those, platforms that I mentioned earlier, their images are designed to fit with most of your content. Okay, so you want to just make certain that you're using those high quality images, even if you're going to be using images that you yourself created. And then, of course, we want to make certain that we limit the amount of text, right? We want to limit the amount of text. We want to stick to the most important information. And if we can, use it in the bullet formats or in very short phrases. You do not want a long paragraph. No one's going to read it. Okay. And if you have a long paragraph, then you want to break each of your sentences up in bullets or into a little format where people will not get eye fatigue from looking at it. And then we want to test your visuals, right? So before presenting your visual, test them with a simple audience, right? Make sure that when you are actually testing the information with your audience, find out, is it easy for them to understand, right? Ask questions, ask for feedback, right? And then, of course, make any kind of necessary adjustments to improve the visual for clarity. And of course, this is what we was talking about, right? Making certain that we design for clarity, that it's not too messy or too difficult for anyone to kind of pick up and understand what it is that what your message is. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is how can we incorporate storytelling techniques, right? Because, storytelling is a very powerful tool, especially for engaging your audience, right? So we want to make sure that we're telling a story or that we're creating some kind of imagery in their heads or using analogies, right, to make our content more relatable and more memorable, right? So, how can we do this? Right? So you can incorporate storytelling by using images, by using graphs or videos that convey a narrative or a story that is connected to the information being presented. So, like, one of the things I really like to do, especially on my social media posts, is I usually have a post that's in a carousel, right? And the carousel really kind of gives different points and it kind of talks about the same subject, but it gives a lot of good information and it begins to create a story that you're trying to convey to your audience. So that's going to be super important. Another really powerful way to create or to utilize storytelling inside of your content is absolutely going to be to make certain that you're using analogies, right? Analogies are going to be a great way to explain complex pieces of information, or even to explain those abstract concepts by comparing them to something that is familiar to them, right? So, for example, if you were talking about a sports analogy, in terms of teamwork, right? Then that is going to be something everyone can relate to. Or if you're talking about a cooking analogy in order to explain some type of scientific process, again, that's going to be a great way because people are going to be able to relate. So tell your story, right? Make certain that it's powerful. Make certain that it hits key points from your audience because you already know who they are and what they're looking for, right? And then, of course, you want to make certain that it carries your brand messaging, right? So you want to make certain that whatever story you are telling, that it falls back to your brand and that you are using your brand messaging to let your potential customer know who you are, right? So remember, incorporating storytelling techniques into your content is going to help engage, relate, and remember, right? And those are going to be key factors for when people are looking for a particular subject or a particular topic or subject matter expert. Having that engaged, relatable, and memorable content, it could very well be the difference between them coming to you or going somewhere else, right? All right, so we have two more topics that we're going to talk about in terms of how can we create engaging visual content. So the next one that we're going to talk about is using visuals to enhance and not distract, right? So the purpose of any of our visual content is to basically enhance your message, not distract from it. So we're going to use visuals that's going to support your content and that is going to add value to it rather than using visual for the sake of aesthetics. Now, visuals can be, not can be, they are very powerful tools when we talk about enhancing your particular message. But if you don't use it right, then it can, of course, become the opposite and it can distract from whatever the message is. So, again, as always, we want to make certain that we consider our audience, okay? We want to make sure that we choose visuals that support the content, okay? So, how do we do this? I want to make certain that, our messaging is basically tied into whatever images or audio or story or whatever it is that we're using, that it is carrying our message, that it ties in, that it is familiar to the audience because this is the message that they are hearing. We want to avoid using visuals that, of course, are just very decorative, right? I had someone tell me that one of the images that I was using was, it reminded them of something very unpleasant, and I was thinking, oh my, that's not the kind of emotion that I'm looking to, spark in someone. And so that is something that we have to consider, right? Something can, of course, cause the opposite effect based on someone's own personal experience. But having that feedback is going to be super important. So again, we're talking about, making certain that we're using visuals inside of our content to enhance and not to distract. Hello, Brandon. Thanks for stopping by. I'm not bringing anyone on the stage today, but I will have this particular room available on replay inside of the message board. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to this one or the one from yesterday or the day before, definitely go and check it out. You will see it on the message board if you go into the house. And if you're not a member of the house, definitely go ahead and click the Content Creation Lab up top and join us. So if you have a habit of liking to incorporate, various images into your content, we want to make certain that they're not, competing for the attention of your particular audience, right? Because when you add too many visuals, right, they have a habit of making things overly crowded and too complex. All right. So we want to make certain that as we're looking at the images, as we're determining what images to go into the actual content, that they are helping, right, usher along the message versus, cutting it off. All right. We also want to make certain that we are using adequate spacing. We're making certain that we are using relevant type content or visual content, okay? And then, of course, we don't want to sacrifice clarity for aesthetics, right? So it may be beautiful, and it may be super aesthetically pleasing, but it just kind of doesn't make the message clear. And so in that case, don't use it, right? We always, pick clarity over beauty. Okay. If it can be clear, then we want clarity every single time. We also want to make certain that we use our visual content to break up text. If you've noticed on a majority of sell pages, you would have short phrases, some highlighted, visual content. Then again, it'll go back into short phrases, some highlighted, and then maybe a video, right? So inside of a sales page, this is going to be super important. Everything that we're talking about is basically living inside that one document. So we want to make certain that we understand how to use it properly, okay? Because it's a powerful tool. Also, we want to make certain that we're using consistent styles, right? We want to make certain that we're using high quality visuals, whether it's audio, whether it's a video, or even if it's just a regular old image, right? We want to make certain that when we choose our visuals, that they're relevant, simple, and clear, right? And that's going to be what is going to help us ensure that our audience will be more inclined to engage with it. Now, is it the 100% science? No, it's not. But these are the things that will help increase the likelihood that your potential audience will engage more with your actual content. All right, so this is the final point that we're going to talk about. Okay, and we're still within our 30-minute time frame, so no worries. We're going to talk about how important it is to be on the mindset to consistently review and refine, right? So after creating your visual content, you want to consistently review it and consistently edit and refine it, right? That means you want to make certain that you're getting feedback from others who see your visual, and let them tell you exactly what they think about it. Right now, that is up to you. It's up to you how or what you do with that information. Right? When we refined it, we're really trying to ensure that three things are happening. Okay, we're trying to make certain that it is clear in terms of our messaging, that it's compelling, right? That it is resonating with your audience, and it supports your content or your brand. All right, so those are the three things when we're looking in review and refining our content. Now, when we're reviewing and refining our content, especially the visual portion, it's going to be essential that we take into account, is this particular image, is this video, is this slide, is it effective in engaging in engaging our audience, right? And of course, looking for clarity is going to always be our top priority. Some of the other things that, the reason why this is going to be important is going to be increasing engagement, making certain that we have, accurate information, and then of course tailoring our actual content to our audience. And we're consistently looking for improvements and feedback. Okay, that is going to be our number one objective. So, you guys, that's it. That is the end of day 3. We talked about some techniques for creating engaging visual content that is going to enhance your actual information and messaging for your target audience. Absolutely, if you're listening to this on YouTube, definitely make certain that you subscribe. Okay. If you're listening to this in the Clubhouse app, make certain that you go ahead and become a member of the room, or excuse me, the house. If you are listening to this on my podcast, then definitely give me a follow, and you will be able to, get notifications whenever we have any new information being added to our podcast, to YouTube, and of course here with inside of the Content Creation Lab. Hi, welcome. I'm actually getting ready to close the room. But this particular room is on replay, and I will post the link to the replay that I have out on YouTube. Also, if you're interested, there are 2 other audios that is going to take into account our subjects for Monday and Tuesday. Monday, we talked about creating content that is going to resonate with your target audience, and on Tuesday we talked about creating basically our content plan and utilizing content buckets. But today, our conversation centered around making certain that we were able to create content and techniques for incorporating good visuals inside of the content. Again, my name is Janice. I am your online content and course creation strategist. I'm the owner of Hills Leadership and Training Institute. You are here in the Content Creation Lab, and you happen to be listening to the Lunch and Learn series. This week's series is all about tips and techniques for helping you create amazing content that you can use across all of your social media platforms. If you are interested in having or receiving more detail in terms of content creation, course creation, or just some generalized training for your business or organization, definitely go ahead and reach out to me, and I would love to have a conversation with you. And with that, we are going to close the room in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. I will see everyone tomorrow when we are on our 4th topic, which is all about writing effective descriptions. Okay, and that is the end.